They said Billy Bats could make a room laugh, or make it go silent, with the same smile. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories about loyalty, betrayal, and the price of power. Brooklyn, late 1940s. The bars smelled of whiskey and cigarette ash. A young William Benvina, later known as Billy Bats, was already learning the language of respect. He wasn't the biggest guy on the block, but he had charm, sharp eyes, and a sense of humor that could melt tension faster than a handshake. People liked him. More importantly, they trusted him. Bats joined the Gambino family young, smart, loyal, and calm under pressure. He ran rackets, numbers, and small loan operations, always with a grin that said, "Don't worry, kid. It's just business." But even then, his friends noticed something about him. He talked too much. Sometimes his words carried warmth, sometimes they carried warning. And in the Mafia world, words could be as dangerous as bullets. He didn't know it yet, but one night, one sentence, and one laugh too many would seal his fate. "Keep your mouth shut, Billy," someone once told him. He should have listened. Billy grew up on the edges of Little Italy, a place where loyalty wasn't just a rule, it was survival. His father worked hard, his mother prayed harder, and Billy, well, he learned early that respect opened more doors than fear ever could. By his 20s, he was known as the kind of guy who'd help you fix your car in the morning and collect your gambling debt by nightfall. Always smiling, always calm. "Nothing personal," he'd say, brushing off the dust from his jacket. Business is business. Even as the money grew, Billy kept simple habits. He shined his shoes every morning, folded his shirts neatly, and visited his parents every Sunday, no matter what kind of blood was on the streets that week. That small ritual made him feel human in a world built on silence and secrets. Friends said he had a good heart, too good for the life he chose. But in that world, kindness was often mistaken for weakness. And Billy's charm, his talk, his warmth, the very things that made him different, would one day make him vulnerable. He believed he could joke with anyone. Even made men. But some men don't like jokes. The 1960s were good to Billy Bats. Fresh out of a long prison stretch, 6 years upstate for racketeering, he came back to New York with the calm of a man who'd learned patience the hard way. Prison didn't break him. It polished him. He'd kept his mouth shut, done his time, and earned his stripes the old-fashioned way, through silence. When he walked back into the bars of Queens and Brooklyn, people stood up. "Welcome home, Billy," they cheered, clapping him on the back. Even the younger wise guys like Tommy DeSimone and Henry Hill, showed respect. Billy was old school, one of the last who still believed in honor over hustle. But the world had changed while he was gone. The new generation wanted fast money, faster cars, and no rules. Billy still played by the old code: respect your elders, keep your mouth shut, and never forget who made you. That night at the Sweet Lounge, his comeback felt complete. The drinks were flowing, music buzzing, and laughter filled the room. Billy raised his glass, proud, loud, alive. And that's when he made the joke. The one that should have stayed unspoken. In the days that followed, Billy was everywhere again, shaking hands, collecting debts, running numbers with the quiet confidence of a man who'd earned his place. He wasn't flashy, didn't need bodyguards or gold chains. His power was in the way people listened when he spoke. He'd sit at the end of a bar, neat scotch in hand, shoes shining under the dim light. Guys leaned in when he talked, not because they feared him, but because they respected him. He had presence. Years of silence had carved wisdom into his voice. Things used to be simple, he told a young associate one night. You earned before you spent. You spoke after you listened. Now everyone's in a hurry to die rich. That was Billy, sharp, proud, and just a little bit tired of what the mob was becoming. He wanted to remind people who built this life, and who really ran it. But power, in that world, is fragile. Every smile hides a grudge. Every toast hides a blade. And somewhere across the room, one man was already thinking, maybe Billy's time is over. It started small, a look, a pause, a whisper that lasted a second too long. Billy could feel it. The respect he once commanded was turning into something colder, something quieter. Tommy DeSimone, the young, hot-headed wise guy Billy had joked with at the sweet lounge, stopped laughing when Billy walked in. The others followed his lead. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was something deeper. In the Mafia, disrespect could travel faster than bullets. Billy didn't mean harm that night. His joke, "Go get your shine box," was an old-school jab, a friendly line between men who'd known each other for years. But to Tommy, it wasn't funny. It was humiliation. In front of his crew, his girl, his ego. And once pride is wounded, apology means nothing. Billy thought it would pass. He'd seen bigger fights end in a handshake. But he didn't understand the new world he'd walked back into, a world where boys with tempers and guns didn't wait for permission to act. He laughed it off, poured another drink, and told his friends, "Tommy'll cool down." But Tommy wasn't cooling down. He was loading up. The weeks after the argument were quiet, too quiet. Billy noticed cars he didn't recognize parked across the street. Phone clicks that weren't there before. Maybe it was the feds, maybe it was paranoia. Either way, he felt eyes on him. He'd been around long enough to know when something in the air had changed. The streets that once felt like home now hummed with tension. His old friends avoided eye contact. Tommy's crew stopped showing up at the bars Billy liked. Even Henry Hill, friendly, talkative Henry, spoke in shorter sentences. Billy told himself it was the FBI sniffing around again. After all, they'd been cracking down on every mob family in the city. But deep down, he knew the truth. The real danger wasn't from the government. It was from his own kind. One night, over dinner, he leaned toward a friend and said softly, "You ever feel like everyone's waiting for something bad to happen?" The man didn't answer. He just nodded, eyes fixed on his plate. Billy smiled faintly, took a sip of wine, and whispered, "Yeah, me too." He didn't know it then, but his next visit to the sweet lounge would be his last. It was June 1970. Billy Batts walked into the sweet lounge one last time, clean suit, polished shoes, same old grin. The jukebox played Sinatra, the smell of whiskey hung thick, and everyone seemed just a little too friendly. Tommy and Henry were already there, smiling too wide. "Billy, look who's back," Tommy said, slapping his shoulder. Billy laughed, raising his glass, trying to believe it was just another night. But something about the room felt off. The laughter was forced. The music too loud. The shadows too long. "Go get your shine box," Tommy said again, this time, with ice in his voice. Billy froze. For a split second, the old warmth drained from the room. He opened his mouth to laugh it off, but it was too late. The first hit came fast. A punch, then another. Tables crashed, glasses shattered, and the air filled with the sound of betrayal. Billy didn't beg. He tried to fight back, old instincts, pure pride, but there were too many of them, too much hate. The music kept playing, drowning his last breath under a sea of brass and smoke. Some say he never saw it coming. But deep down, he always did. The story didn't end at the sweet lounge. It was buried, literally. Billy's body vanished for months, then years. Whispers spread through Brooklyn like smoke, "They got Batts." He mouthed off. Should have kept quiet. But no one said it out loud. Not in that world. The FBI caught wind soon enough. Missing persons, surveillance, old grudges, they pieced together the story, one rumor at a time. Tommy disappeared before they could reach him. Henry, years later, told it all under witness protection. The truth was uglier than anyone imagined. A drunken rage turned into a cold-blooded hit. Meanwhile, Billy's name faded into silence. No revenge, no justice. Just stories told in dark corners, by men who pretended not to remember. And in that silence, Billy lived on, as a ghost of the old code. A reminder that in the mob, doing your time wasn't enough. You could play by every rule, keep your mouth shut, and still end up in the ground because someone couldn't handle a joke. They said Billy's soul haunted that bar, not as a threat, but as a warning. Every laugh in the dark sounded like his. Years passed, and the names changed, new gangs, new codes, new rules. But the story of Billy Bats never really left the streets. Every young wise guy heard it whispered like a bedtime tale told in reverse, not about glory, but about consequences. Watch your mouth, the old-timers would say, tapping the bar with 2 fingers. Remember Bats. It became less about him, more about what he represented, the thin line between respect and ruin. Billy had been loyal. He'd done time, kept faith, lived by the book. But the world he came back to had no use for old values. Honor had been replaced by ego, patience by pride. The mob had become louder, meaner, faster, and Billy was a man from another era trying to breathe in a room full of smoke. In a strange way, that's why people still talk about him. He wasn't the most feared, or the richest. But he was the reminder that no matter how deep your roots go in this life, one careless word can cut them down. Somewhere in Brooklyn, old men still raise a glass and say quietly, "Here's to Billy Bats, the man who talked when he should have smiled." Billy Bats' story isn't just about crime, it's about timing. About how one moment, one word, can erase a lifetime of loyalty. He wasn't the first to die for pride, and he wouldn't be the last. But his story lingers because it feels human, the tragedy of a man who believed respect was forever, not realizing the rules had already changed. If you listen closely, his life says something simple but sharp. In a world built on fear, silence is a kind of wisdom. And sometimes, survival isn't about being brave, it's about knowing when to walk away. Billy outlived his era, even if his body didn't. His name became a ghost story told by those who thought they'd never end up like him, until they did. He wasn't the loudest gangster. He wasn't the cruelest. He was just the one who trusted the wrong kind of laughter. He outlived the world he built, not because he was lucky, but because he never broke his word. Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more true stories like this one. Because every legend leaves an echo.